this bullshit. Look at these teams. Infinite Athlete, Utilita and Team Viewer. And these overpaid muppets who kick a ball around, just playing football. People who've never had a thought in their life, right? People who've never had an intelligent thought in their life. And years ago, football shirts, they just were football shirts. And now people actually pay 70, 80 quid to buy a Chinese-made polyester shirt, which makes you sweat like mad, in order to promote companies, quite often companies involved in gambling, things like that. Look at this tattoo twat, I think he's Ukrainian. Oh God. And let's go down the page. Ratcliffe considering Man United minority stake offer. Why would he want minority stake? What's the advantage of that? You can't make decisions. And why would he even want to buy Manchester United? This guy has made billions from the chemical industry. So the only explanation that I can think of is that he's vain and thinks owning a football club would be cool. Hey, look, I own a football club. Another option, of course, is tax avoidance. Sometimes they can set aside these purchases for tax. He might even end up in pocket by buying a football club. The only weird thing is that this guy happens to be English, and vast majority of football clubs are owned by foreigners, especially Jews and Arabs. Here we are. Athlete of the Year. Cricket's carbon footprint brings opportunity. Well, you know what? If cricketers are truly concerned about their carbon footprint, how about simply stop playing cricket altogether? If cricketers feel that playing cricket somehow is bad for the environment, then maybe they should just stop playing cricket altogether. That's an idea. You know, stop playing cricket, stop playing football. Stop with the virtue signalling shit. God, I hate this world. I've stabbed someone, now I try to stop others. That's nice. The bottom line is this. Have you noticed the kind of stories that they promote? I used to smoke 20 a day, but now I haven't smoked them for years. You know, these kind of May Muller. She represented Britain in the Eurovision Song Contest. Jewish. She doesn't like the Britain, she prefers the EU. She applied for a German passport. It'd be Muller, a name like that. Oh Lord. The world could be a nice place, but it's not just the politicians who ruin our world. It's actually the public, the people around us. These idiots with whom you can't have an intelligent conversation. They don't understand what's going on. They're idiots. They're bloody morons. Pope backs the blessing of same-sex partnerships. You know, why do gay people need the blessing of the Pope? Why can't gay people have a civil partnership? What they try and do is they muscle in. They want to try and copy male-female relationships. That's not going to happen. I mean, it may happen, but it shouldn't happen. Cancelling the Future climbed over HS2. HS2 is a waste of money. Should never have been authorised in the first place. Complete and utter waste of money. It's a bit of good news that food prices are coming down. You know, is we're living in an age where lots of stuff is being delivered, where a lot of stuff is being done online, where more and more people are working from home. So is HS2 the best way to spend money? Well, yeah, it's certainly better than spending money on giving weapons to Ukraine and Zelensky. I'm sure about that. But is it the best way to use public money? I think not. I think there are other. But the bottom line is politicians get backhanders to promote this shit. Lots of companies who are profiting from the HS2 are Tory donors or Labour donors or both. In the United States, for example, many companies donate to both Republicans and the Democrats. What that means is that whoever gets in will be obliged to do what they're told. Because politics has never been about about the public, about the individual best interest. Look at Sunak, honestly, what a creep. But, let's face it, Starmer's no better. Maybe even worse. So when you vote, you don't have a choice between good choices would be the ideal. I'd like to be in a position where, you know what, that Starmer's a really great guy. Really like him. So, but Sunak's doing such a good job as well. Gee, it's such a hard decision to make. These two wonderful people, these two wonderful people who put Britain first are both vying, and it's difficult to know who to choose. When you go to a restaurant, you look at a menu and you see lots and lots of dishes that you like. Lots of delicious dishes that you like to eat. Right? But when you choose in politics or when you vote in a political election, you get to choose between two menu items that you find totally disgusting. I mean, are people out there genuinely enthused by Starmer or Sadiq Khan or Sunak or Hamza Yusuf? Right? And the answer is doubt it. And I think a lot of people will be voting for Starmer, but not because they like him, but because they want to see Sunak out. And a lot of people will be voting for Sunak, not because they like him, because they think that Starmer will be even worse. What percentage of the British public are truly satisfied with Sunak? Very few. And what percentage of the British public are convinced that Keir Starmer, out of all the people who live in Britain, would be the best choice for PM? I don't think that many. I mean, even the people who claim to like him, I mean, he's Brill Cream man. He used to be Director of Public Prosecutions. It's so boring because, when you bring up this subject, people say, oh, well, yeah, but it wasn't his decision. It was a junior. So Keir Starmer was a DPP head, Director of Public Prosecutions. At the time, Jimmy Savile was let off the hook, right? BBC. Sir Jimmy Savile, knighted by the Pope, who wants to bless same-sex marriages. Boy, we live in a pretty depraved world. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with a bit of nookie. I'm all in favour of that. Wouldn't mind some myself, actually. And there's nothing intrinsically wrong with being attracted to the same sex. I don't understand that attraction myself. But then again, I don't understand why people like kidneys. But some people do. Why not? Just a matter of taste. It's not my taste, but it is other people's taste. I personally think that homosexuality is not innate. I believe it's a result of childhood trauma. A lot of kids have been abused when they were young. I'm not saying all, but if you question, if you politely ask people about their background, because we've all had weird moments as kids, right? A lot of people I know have been sexually interfered with as children. Funny enough, this never happened to me, thank God. I'm weird enough as it is, to be fair. But at least if it did, I can't remember it. You never know. But I think I have no recollection of anything bad happening to me as a child. Although I had an unhappy childhood, my parents were always arguing. It was terrible. My father was a horrible bully. I mean, I really hated him. I mean, when I grew older, I didn't hate him so much because he was old and couldn't control me anymore. And also I realised that in a way it wasn't his fault. He probably didn't even know any better. But at the time I can't describe how much I hated my father. I mean, I really hated him. This is the problem when people have control over you. As a child, you have very little power to control your own life, and you also are too ignorant to do it either. So you're dependent on other people. Of course, lots of people have good parents, but some of us don't. And I think, even though I'm personally happy with the way I turned out, I also recognise the fact that a lot of other people don't agree with my high opinion of myself. I acknowledge that, and they probably feel like there's something wrong with me. Well, maybe if there is, maybe it's to do with my childhood, and in a way that would not be my fault, would it? Because we're all born, when we're born with lottery. It depends which country we're born in, which language we speak, the affluence of our parents, whether we're at war or not, if many factors influence our lives, where we live, the people around us, our relatives, our friends, the school we go to. A lot of it is a lottery. Some people are born lucky and others are born incredibly unlucky. I think I was born, overall, I think I was quite lucky in my background. I had an affluent childhood. There was a lot of family problems, but I went to start with at least, I went to some very good schools, and I kind of ended up learning how to teach myself, how to think for myself, which is something kids these days are not taught. Children should be taught to challenge authority. Children should be taught to question the agreed conclusions. Nobody can deny that climate change is being promoted as a fait accompli. This is something you need to question when there's no debate on the topic. We need to see the evidence. Statistics can be manipulated. Where are the from 500 years ago? I want to see climate records. There aren't any. So what they're doing is using modelling to try and pretend that unless we totally turn our lives upside down, we'll all be under 100 metres of seawater by next Tuesday. Statistics can be made to mean anything, and also people have far too much trust in people who are described as experts. Right? During the wars in America, when America was trying to push wars in Iraq and other countries, the American TV had all these retired generals, general this, general that, and they came on the television to say that things have to be done and America needs to take action and we owe it to the people, blah, blah, blah. But it was never pointed out to the people watching TV that these men were being sponsored and that these men had jobs at arms manufacturers. Do you really think such people can be trusted to give objective advice? If you're in the business of if you're a baked bean manufacturer, you're not going to go on TV and say, you know what, I think baked beans are bad for you. They're bad for your digestion. They give you flatulence. I mean, you don't want to be on a date and start farting madly, do you? Doesn't happen. Oddly enough, all these generals support war. One of the few who didn't was Wesley Clark. Wesley Clark said, and also General Smedley Butler, if you have time, I advise you to read a book called War is a Racket. He recognised that his job wasn't to protect the American people. He was just basically a hired gun paid for by taxpayers to promote the government's agenda and their sponsors, which is big business. The British government, just like every other government, works for business. They're the ones who choose everything. All our policies are chosen on their behalf. Right? Sunak, honestly. He's looking into the distance. I have nothing against him being of Indian origin. Doesn't bother me in the least. But I'm not going to like him just because of that, when his policies are bad for our country. But then again, in mainstream politics, it's very hard to find anyone who's really got our best interests at heart.